Obsidian is, at its core, a markdown-based text editor. And that is both a strength, as it guarantees that whatever you write in Obsidian will be readable by another text editor if you decide to switch in the future, but it also means it can be a little bit confusing for new users who are used to writing in apps like Apple's Pages or Microsoft Word. If you've ever opened Obsidian, seen all those hashtags and asterisks and brackets all over the place and thought, what in the world is happening here, then this video is for you. Hi, I'm Mike Schmitz, and today I'm going to show you everything you need to know about using Markdown to create notes in Obsidian. This is the latest video in my Obsidian Basics series where I walk through everything you need to know in order to use Obsidian, and hopefully by the end of this video, you're going to wonder why you were ever so intimidated by Markdown in the first place. Because once you understand a few simple concepts, Markdown quickly becomes second nature. You don't really need to know any code to make it work, so let's dive in and let's make this ridiculously simple. All right, so first things first, what even is Markdown? Well, here's the simplest way that I can explain it. Markdown is just a way of telling your computer how to format text using plain text characters in your file. That's it. There are advantages and disadvantages to this approach. The advantage is that whatever text you see is the text in your file. And you know, without a shadow of a doubt, it will be compatible with whatever text editor you open it with. So you can switch programs in the future if you want to. The disadvantage is that it's not really intuitive how you apply text formatting like bold or italics if you're not already familiar with Markdown formatting syntax, as you actually have to type additional characters in your text in order to style it the way that you want. So instead of clicking a button in a toolbar to apply formatting and make your text bold like you would in a word processor, using Markdown, you just put two asterisks on either side of the text that you want to style. Instead of selecting heading 1 from a drop-down menu like you might in Google Docs, you just type a single hashtag character and a space before the text in your heading. Now you might be thinking, why would I want to do that? Clicking buttons is easier, and I get it. But here's why Markdown is actually brilliant. Because it's just plain text. Your notes will work as written forever. Forever. They're not locked into some proprietary format that might not be supported in 10 years. You can open a Markdown file in literally any text editor on any device 50 years from now, and it'll still work. That's the power of plain text, and that's ultimately why Obsidian uses Markdown formatting. It's very much in line with the file over app philosophy that the Obsidian CEO has written about previously, which is a bit of a manifesto about data portability, and this philosophy is one of the reasons I like this app so much. Plus, once you learn how to use Markdown, it's just a handful of basic syntax rules, and I mean there's like 5 of them that you use all the time. You can actually format your notes way faster than clicking around with your mouse, so Markdown quickly becomes invisible, and that is a very good thing. Now here's something important to understand about how Obsidian works with Markdown. You've got 2 main ways to view your notes in Obsidian: edit mode and reading mode. So in edit mode, you'll see all the Markdown syntax, the asterisks, the hashtags, all of it. And this is what you use to actually write and edit your notes. Now in reading mode, you'll see the formatted results. Bold text will look bold, headings will look like headings, and everything is cleaned up and it's very pretty. But there's also a middle ground option called live preview. Live preview kind of gives you the best of both worlds. It shows the syntax when you're rendering formatting in line so you can edit confidently without sacrificing visual clarity. But the moment that you move your cursor away from that line, it renders the text like you would see it in reading mode. Now here's the key. Do not let edit mode scare you. Once you understand the basics, your brain learns to read right through those symbols. And you'll see 2 asterisks around the word important, and your brain will just register, oh, that's bold. It happens a lot faster than you think. All right, so let's get into the actual syntax here and start writing some Markdown. Let's start with headers, because these are the backbone of how you organize your notes in an app like Obsidian. There's even an outline core plugin that lets you navigate your notes by clicking on the headers in the active note. Now in Markdown, you create headers using the hashtag or the # character. The number of hashtags corresponds to the level of the header. So for example, 1 hashtag creates a level 1 header. That's your biggest heading. Here's what a level 1 header looks like when you type it in your note. Now 2 hashtags, you guessed it, creates a level 2 header, which is slightly smaller. And this is what a level 2 header looks like. Now you can go all the way down to 6 hashtags for a 6th level header. But honestly, most people rarely go past level 3 or 4. Now, in order for your text to render as a header though, you do need a space after that last hashtag. If you forget that space, Obsidian is not going to recognize it as a header, and if it's a first level header, it's actually going to interpret it as an inline tag instead. So hashtag header will be viewed as a tag, but hashtag space header will be viewed as a first level header. Okay, now since the size of each header is baked into the theme that you're using, many people will just use the header level they want based on the size of the text they want to see in their note. But technically there is a hierarchy to these header levels, and here's generally how I recommend each one should be used. Level 1 is usually your note title. Obsidian will actually use your file name as a title, so you don't often need a level 1 header in your note if you are writing in Obsidian. Level 2 is usually for the main sections of your note. Level 3 is for subsections within those main sections, and level 4 is for when you really need to break things down even further. So most headers in your notes will likely be second level headers with third and fourth level headers appearing in longer notes as needed. Now all the headings are nested hierarchically in the outline view, and you can fold headers if you have the fold heading option enabled in the editor settings. All right, next up, let's look at basic text formatting, things like bold, italics, etc. So for bold text, you use 2 asterisks on each side of the text that you want to make bold. So for example, this is some bold text. For italic text, you use just 1 asterisk on each side. So again, for example, here is some italicized text. And if you want to combine these, you can do that by using 3 asterisks. So for example, this is both bold and italicized text. Obsidian also supports highlighting text, which is handy when you're taking notes from a source and you want to mark the really important stuff. So to highlight text like this, you just put 2 equal signs on each side of the text. So for example, here is some highlighted text. Now, if you want to show that something is no longer relevant or it's been completed, you can also use strike-through formatting by putting 2 tildes on each side of the text. So for example, this text is crossed out. Now don't worry, you don't actually have to remember all this syntax. You can use keyboard shortcuts for most of this stuff. So for example, if you highlight some text and then you hit Command B on your Mac or Control B on Windows, Obsidian will automatically make it bold. You can also use Command I or Control I for italicizing text. And there are also commands to toggle highlighting or strike through text. And if you want, you can assign keyboard hotkeys to these commands as well by going to Settings, Hotkeys, clicking the plus button, and then typing the keyboard hotkey that you want to assign to that command. But I still think it's worth knowing the syntax, because once you get this, you can actually format faster by just typing it as you go without ever taking your hands off the keyboard. And like I said earlier, this happens a lot faster than you might think. All right, now let's talk about lists, because lists are huge if you use the outlining features in Obsidian at all. And there are really 2 different types of lists: ordered lists and unordered lists. Now, unordered lists are basically just bullet lists with no numbers. To create an unordered list, you just use a dash or an asterisk, then a space, which will create the bullet, then you type your text. And if you have the Smart List option turned on in the editor settings, when you hit enter, the next item in the list will be created automatically, and you can just type the text for the next item in the list. Numbered lists work the exact same way, except you use numbers instead of dashes. So for example, if you type a 1 and then a period, then hit space, Obsidian will automatically convert your text into an ordered or numbered list. And when you hit enter, Obsidian will automatically continue your numbering for you. So if you're on line 2 and you hit enter, it'll automatically add the 3rd item in the list like so. And by the way, when you're creating lists, you can also create nested lists by selecting an item in the list and hitting the tab key. This indents the bullet underneath the previous item in the list. And again, you can fold these indented bullets up into the parent bullet if you have the fold indent option toggled on in the Obsidian editor settings. You can also use bullets to create task lists in Obsidian. And these are great for tracking things you need to get done, checklists, or just action items from meeting notes. You can create a task list by using a dash, then a space, then square brackets with a space in the middle. And when you're in reading mode, or if you're using live preview, you can actually click these checkboxes to toggle these items on or off. If you use something like the Obsidian Task plugin, you can also add emoji-based metadata to the line and use that information to roll up your tasks using powerful queries. So check out this video that I did a while back on task management in Obsidian if you want to go deeper down that rabbit hole. But one quick tip here is that when you're making lists in Obsidian, You need to have a blank line before your list starts, or Obsidian may not format it correctly depending on your other settings. So don't just go directly from a paragraph into a list, just hit enter twice to create a blank line first. Now we're going to get into one of the most powerful features of Obsidian, which is links. And this is where your notes start becoming a network of connected knowledge instead of just isolated text files. Now there are two types of links in Obsidian: internal links and external links. So let's look at internal links first, which are basically links between your Obsidian notes. Now the main way that you link to notes in Obsidian is with double square brackets around the name of the note you want to link to. It's pretty simple. You don't even have to remember the name of the note that you want to create the link to. You can just type the two opening square brackets, start typing the name of the note you want to link to, and Obsidian will show you a list of matching notes. Select the one that you want, hit enter, and autocomplete takes care of the rest. Congratulations, you've just created an internal link. And if you want to embed the contents of that note inside the current note, just put an exclamation point before the first two square brackets. Now, if you don't want to use autocomplete, you can also type whatever note title you want to link to. And if the note doesn't exist yet, that's fine. Obsidian will create it automatically when you click the link in the note or in the local graph. So think of this as kind of like dropping a placeholder for a note without having to take the time to stop what you're doing and actually create it. So this is great for building out your knowledge system as you go. Now, what if you want to link to a specific section within a note? You can do that by using the hashtag symbol after the note name to link to a specific header in the note. Once this is there, Obsidian will jump directly to that header when you click the link, which is handy for longer notes with lots of sections. Now, personally, I don't use this all that often, but it's handy to know that this is there in case you ever need it. And there's one other cool trick you can use with links called aliases. So for example, sometimes you want the link text to say something different than the actual note name. So in these instances, you can use the pipe symbol after the note name and type the text that you want to appear on the link before closing the link with double brackets. I use this all the time when I'm linking to Canvas or Basis files, as I don't like seeing .base or .canvas from the file name in the link inside my note. So that's internal links. The other type of links are external links, which are usually links to websites, but can also be links to apps or anything outside of Obsidian. And these use a different syntax. So when you're creating an external link, you need to put the text that you want to display inside single square brackets, and then the URL in parentheses right after that. So for example, I can create a link to my website by putting my website in square brackets and the URL practicalpkm.com in parentheses. But you can also use app-specific links here, which is handy if you want to link to supporting material. So for example, using Hookmark, I can grab a link to my Keynote file with my YouTube thumbnails, and then I can create a link in my Obsidian note that opens that document when I click on it. There's a lot you can do with external links beyond just linking to things on the web, and Obsidian treats them all the same. Just the beginning part of the URL will look different, as it usually has the app name instead of the standard HTTPS. This is important because PKM is more than just the notes that you keep in your Obsidian vault. Information needs to be able to flow between all the different parts of your PKM system, and not all of these links are going to exist within a single app. So it's important that you have ways to link these things together. All right, so now let's talk about some power user features that can take your Markdown notes to the next level. And first up here is callouts and block quotes. These are great for making certain information stand out in the body of your note. You can create a basic block quote by just putting a greater than symbol at the start of a line. This will indent the text and you'll see a colored accent bar appear on the left. You can have a block quote span multiple lines by hitting the Enter key, which will create a second line with that greater than character followed by a space, like so. So block quotes like this can be handy when you want to draw attention to a specific section of text. But Obsidian has another feature which is even cooler that I use all the time called callouts, which are really just special formatted boxes that have some more visual flair. So while on the surface they look like fancy block quotes, they can actually hold notes and code blocks as well as just text. So you create a callout the same way as a block quote with a greater than character followed by a space. Then you add a square bracket with an exclamation mark and a callout type. The type you choose here will determine the icon and the color that are used for the callout. Whatever text you put after the type will appear as the title, and the text you put on the lines below will appear as the contents of the callout, like so. Now there are many different types of callouts you can use that are baked into Obsidian. Note, tip, warning, danger, info, question, and many, many more. I actually have a callout reference note in my free Obsidian starter vault that covers a lot of these. The link to download it is in the description below this video if you want to get it for yourself. Now, each type of callout gets a different color and an icon, and if you want to manage these callouts or even create your own callout types, then check out the Callout Manager plugin. This lets you create new callout types and select the color and icon to be used for them. Now, as I mentioned, you can actually use code blocks and callouts as well. We haven't covered code blocks yet, but the important thing to know for now is that when you do, you need to start each line of the callout with a greater than character and a space. You can also make your callouts collapsible by adding a plus or minus sign, where the plus sign means that it will be expanded by default, and the minus sign means it will be collapsed by default. So callouts are great, I use them all the time. I have several of them on my daily note. They're also fantastic for study notes, project documentation, or any time that you want to highlight important information. Like I said, I use them pretty heavily, including in the documentation for Life HQ, where I have a custom callout at the top of every how-to note that has a summary of the workflow that I'm describing. Okay, so I mentioned code blocks earlier. There are actually two different ways that you can use these. First, you can use single backticks to round text if you want to show inline code. This renders the text as a monospace font, and if you want to do something like show a keyboard shortcut to hit, this is perfect for that. For a longer block of code, you use 3 backticks before and after the code you want to show. This lets you create a multi-line code block, though you won't see the 3 backticks at the beginning or end if you're in reading mode or live preview. You can even specify the programming language after those first 3 backticks, and Obsidian will syntax highlight the code for you. Here's an example JavaScript code block that shows the hello world function. Now, some plugins allow you to create code blocks that trigger specific functionality as well. For example, I use a code block inside of a callout at the bottom of my daily note for the On This Day feature that I built in Bases. The link to the video where I explain that is below this video. I also use it in my task dashboard video where I show how to use specific syntax inside of code blocks for the Obsidian task plugin to sort my tasks into lists on an Obsidian Canvas file. So even if you're not a programmer, code blocks are worth knowing how to use. Now, the last thing we should talk about here is tables, and I'll be honest, tables in Markdown can be a little finicky. I would consider these optional, and I actually don't use these all that much, if at all, in my Obsidian notes. But if you want to create tables in your Markdown notes, here's how you do it. You just put text between pipe characters, like the example that you see on your screen. So here we've got 3 different columns, and in the first row of this code, you see the column 1, column 2, and column 3 headers. Whatever text you put in between the pipe characters will be the text that appears at the top of this table. The second row with the dashes is what tells Markdown this is a table. And then each row after that is your data. Now, the pipe characters don't have to line up perfectly. Markdown will figure it out as long as the number of pipe characters in each line is consistent. But a lot of people like to line them up because it's easier to read when you're in edit mode. I personally don't care all that much. Now, honestly, I almost never use these, as I mentioned in my regular notes, but they can be great for tracking structured data, maybe comparing different options for something, or keeping score, or organizing some kind of tabular information. So you should know basically how to use these. And if this is a little confusing, I get it. Don't worry. There are plugins and online tools that actually make generating Markdown tables really, really easy. You don't have to hand code them if you don't want to. There's even a built-in command called insert table that will give you the bones of a Markdown table inside your Obsidian note that you can build out for yourself. All right, so at this point, you've got the basics down. Now let me share some pro tips that'll make your Markdown life even easier. So the first tip is to use the command palette. Press Command P on Mac or Control P on Windows, and you'll get the command palette. From here, you can search for any formatting command you might want to use. Type bold and you'll see the toggle bold command. Type heading and you'll see options to convert your current line to any heading level. And this is great when you're first learning Markdown. You don't have to remember every single keyboard shortcut or all the syntax we just covered. Just pull up that command palette and search for whatever you need. And if you prefer slash commands because you're used to them from another app like Slack, for example, you can toggle on the slash commands in the core plugins and access the exact same commands that way as well. Tip number 2. Memorize just a few essential hotkeys. So even though the command palette and the slash commands give you an easy way to reference these commands, there are a few shortcuts that are so useful, I recommend you commit them to memory. Don't worry, there's only a couple. They are Command or Control B for bold text, Command or Control I for italic text, Command or Control E to toggle between edit and reading mode, and Command or Control K to insert a link. This is the 80-20 of Markdown. Memorizing these 4 shortcuts will make working in Markdown incredibly fast for you. Tip number 3, use live preview. In your settings, you can enable live preview mode, which is kind of like a hybrid between edit mode and reading mode. So you can still see your Markdown syntax, but as soon as you move to a different line, that syntax gets formatted and it's a lot easier to read. So you get the best of both worlds with live preview. You can see your syntax while you're typing, but everything else looks clean and nicely formatted. A lot of people, including me, prefer this to the traditional edit mode, so I recommend that you turn this on. Tip number 4, don't overthink it. Here's the thing, you don't need to use every single Markdown feature. Honestly, 90% of my formatting is headers, bold, italic, links, and lists. That's it, those 5 things. So start with those basics, get comfortable, and then add more formatting options as you need them. Do not try to memorize everything at once. And to make it easy, if you want a Markdown reference file, I actually have that in my free Obsidian starter vault as well. Okay, before we wrap up, let me share a few common mistakes I see people make with Markdown so you can avoid these. Mistake number 1 is forgetting the space after the hashtags when creating headers. Remember, hashtag header does not work. You need to use hashtag space header. This trips up a lot of beginners. Mistake number 2, not leaving blank lines before your lists. If you go directly from a paragraph into a list without a blank line, based on your settings, it may not be formatted correctly. So always put a blank line before your list starts. Mistake number 3, mixing up link syntax. Remember, internal links use double square brackets, while external links use square brackets and parentheses. It's easy to mix these up when you are just starting out. So again, just remember, internal notes get double brackets, external websites get the bracket parentheses combo. Mistake number 4 is over formatting. This isn't really a mistake so much as it is a tendency, and I think it can get in the way of the actual writing. So don't go crazy with formatting. You don't need to bold everything, highlight everything, or use every single callout type. Keep it simple, focus on the words, format intentionally, and if you do, your notes will be more readable and they'll be a lot easier to work with. All right, let's bring this home. Markdown might seem intimidating at first, but it's honestly one of the simplest and most powerful ways to format your notes. It makes your notes portable, future-proof, and once you get the muscle memory down, it's incredibly fast to work with Markdown formatting. You don't need to master everything in one day, just start with the basics, your headers, your bold text, italics, links, and lists. Get comfortable with these, and then gradually add more formatting options as you need them. The beautiful thing about Markdown is that it scales with you. So whether you're taking simple meeting notes or you're building an elaborate knowledge management system, the same basic syntax works everywhere. And at this point, many productivity apps have Markdown formatting built into them. So you'll be able to use this a lot more broadly than just in Obsidian. And remember, if you ever forget the syntax for something, you can just pull up the command palette with Command P on Mac or Control P on Windows and type out what you're looking for. I also have that Markdown reference guide and a callout styles cheat sheet inside my free Obsidian starter vault, along with a bunch of tips, templates, and resources to help you get more out of your notes and ideas. You can download it for free right now by going to vault.practicalpkm.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in another video.